Hey, fellow village planners, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to ASKA, Episode 2, Building Shelter for Fellow Vikings. So, early on in the game, it's relatively easy to keep your people happy. Here is his morale. So, he has an optimistic outlook as a result of this being early game. Eventually, morale is going to be really important. And that's why I'm trying to lay out like a housing district and a working district separate from one another, so that the happiness of my villagers are easier to manage, because if you don't do that, you end up needing to build a significant amount of infrastructure to keep them happy, which then, of course, makes it a lot more expensive to have villagers. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because going down that rabbit hole means a lot more work. The TLDR is that the game's difficulty scales to your population, and one way to keep your villagers happy is to have people like stand guard on duty, but in doing so they're not productive. So if you don't lay out your village in a way that will keep your villagers happy, you end up in a situation where you have to dedicate a lot of people to security, and when you do that, they're not productive. And then you can end up in a bit of a... I mean, it doesn't really downward spiral too badly, but you end up in a situation where you can't get enough work done, which can have you fall behind in the ramp-up difficulty that happens in this game, where every 3 days you're attacked, and if you're not well prepared for those attacks, they can overwhelm you. The villagers do need food and water. So if we open up, they have a health, food, water, rest, and warmth. Warmth is mostly going to be relevant in the winter. And I can just hand things directly to the villagers. Eventually, we will have like cooking huts and farms, and they'll be able to supply it for themselves. But early game, the player basically looks after them until you set up production chains so that they can do it for themselves. Alright, so here's shelter number 2. And with shelter number 2, that's going to allow us to add another villager. How many days does the season have? 7. So there's 28 days in a year. Okay, I have 1 Jotun blood already. Nope, wrong thing. So let's harvest these small Jotun blood shards to get enough for another villager. What new deed did I get? Oh, blood of my enemy, yeah. This was the first shard that I've harvested. Sometimes those small shards can drop too. These large shards are still, I don't have the right tools for. Thor's at it again. Man, it is stormy. And I think 3 villagers doing some of the terraforming tasks is going to be like a nice early game goal. It does add a bit of delay in my progress early on, because trying to flatten everything out, you know, requires time and energy and effort. But it will pay off in the long run, where we'll have like a well laid out village, which is dense, compressed, and defendable. The update that happened yesterday also added in one significant gameplay mechanic, which hadn't been present prior, which is enclosing villages and walls have big defensive mood bonuses. Before, it was just left up to like building towers in order to keep your villagers happy and well defended, but now you can build walls around your village, and not only will that thwart enemies from easily being able to destroy your village, but it will also keep people significantly happy. So that's another thing that I would like to do, maybe not super early on because of the cost of the project. It's a rather expensive thing to encompass a village in walls, but it's definitely something I'm going to be considering in the long run, which means having a compressed village that is small but well defended is ultimately my goal. Yeah, it's a really nice addition. There's been a lot of really nice additions to this game. Another big one that was in the latest update is a new building hut, which allows your villagers to automatically repair and light fires. There's some enemies that will steal your food and steal your, like, Jotun blood and things like that. And they are afraid of fire, so you can lay out fires around your, like, farms and stuff like that in order to keep the pests away. So here is the next choices. Soon is a angler. Keep that in mind. I'm, like, not super close to the ocean, so I don't think angling is going to be all that helpful. But, and he's also mighty vigor, so he's strong. And then Gorm has an iron stomach, so you can eat whatever the hell. And he's a battle-scarred veteran. He's endured numerous conflicts and skirmishes, and he's tough as a result. So have you guys decide between Soon and Gorm. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, but it's up to you. And then while you are voting on that, I'm going to get one more shelter going here around the fire. And these will be my 3 starters that help me, you know, survive and expand. And as I did mention just moments ago, the game scales difficulty to your village population. So don't just keep adding villagers willy-nilly, because you can very quickly have such a village population that you end up with having been attacked by swarms and not being able to defend yourself adequately. So, like, be careful not to go down that path. You will get wrecked. I don't have a personal goal about village population this stream, no. It really depends on how quick I progress through tasks and all that. Well, we survived another day. Okay, looks like the battle-scarred veteran is coming to join us. Gorm it is. And I'll be laying out the tent for the 3rd person. Rodder, thank you for the resub. So there is Unexpected just resting in the tent. Regaining some of his morale. So, daylight devotion, leisure hours, sleep hours. His morale, I think, is slightly higher than it was before. And soon he'll be leveling things out. Now, the other thing to note is these guys have their own tools. So he starts with a hoe, a pickaxe, and a stone axe. I'm going to give him some berries to eat. But I will need to be providing, like, food. For water, he starts off with the same sort of, like, canteen bag that I have. So he'll be able to fill it up at the well that we have, or any of the watering holes that we have. So I don't really need to worry about water for him. He'll be able to water himself for the most part. But I don't have a gatherer's hut right now, which means I don't have an automatic way to, or a workplace for people to be able to gain food passively. So until I do have something like that, I am providing for him directly. It's time to build something, he says. Yeah, go build, dude. Now, if you don't want the villagers to, like, stop and wave and say hello, and now that you've seen that once, I'm going to turn that off, which is no bothering villagers. Turning that on means they just get to work. So there's the 3rd shelter, and I'm going to start harvesting Jotun blood while he levels things out so that we can expand. I'd also, it would be wise for me to hit up, like, berry bushes, because I'm pretty hungry, he's pretty hungry, and berries are plentiful in the spring. Also, my tools are nearly worn out. My axe and my picks are pretty borked, so I'll need to be replacing them soon too. And you can see his terraforming progress. So I pinned these construction sites so that I could see when he was finished. That way I could lay out more flattening zones. Importantly, berries really have a shorter grow period, but harvesting garlic, onions, cabbage, and beetroot are going to be better staple crops. So focusing on the, those staple crops that are less plentiful but are better to farm are going to be important. So while I'm out here getting like the Jotun blood shards, I'll also be focusing on foraging for the materials that we need. So he's already done with one of those terraforming zones. So I'll return back. There is a well here, so I'll probably want to turn this into a water well. Even if it's going to be... what I might end up doing is I can have it be tiered. But here is our new villager, Gorm, and he's also going to be helping to build. So I'm going to keep him as a builder. But let's rename him. Gorm, your name is going to be Ink. I'll give you a home. All right, they have the well to work on, I guess. Now, some of these trees, the birch trees, I'm not going to be able to clear because that's higher level than I'm capable of. There's some flattening zones. And then some of the tree stumps are getting in the way, but I can just cut those down myself. Did the plants just grow? Plants do regrow. A lot of the resources that you find and scavenge around will come back over time. But with that said, it's still very, very important to farm, in my opinion. Man, they are going through the work priorities quickly. So we do have the well there, and I don't want to destroy that well. It's going to look a little weird. But what I can do in the long run is design it in such a way that it's like a step well. Once that's built, and once we clear out the birch, I'm not too worried about it. What the way it will look like in the future. I just need better tools to be able to get rid of the birch. So what I'm doing here is just setting up a bunch of flattening jobs so that the initial villagers have some work to do. But they're actually getting through these flattening jobs like faster than I expected. So it might make sense for me to build some workplaces for them instead, because they're finishing almost as fast as I can lay these out. Which is fantastic, right? Like, that's what you want to have happen. This is where I'm going to add some cottages. So the question for you guys is, what first industry to add? Wood, stone, gathering. Have you choose between those three? I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. And if you guys want gathering is one of the industries that add housing value. So that's something you would want close to your houses, if possible. Yeah, it's a pretty natural... And that doesn't look bad at all. Plus, I can always pull out my, my pick and just clean it up a bit. Even without a work order. Okay, looks like gathering is going to be the focus. Build a gathering hut. Or, what is the first tier called? I forget. Pit. Alright, as far as the layout of the gathering pit goes, maybe... So the Eye of Odin is there. So maybe here-ish? I'll flatten a zone over here for it. And being our first industry, I'll have a lot of information about how industries work and industry flags and all that stuff. So as a reminder, the gathering pit is good to live around. Whereas if I did wood or stone, it would not be good to live around. Yeah, looking pretty flat. Definitely looking better. These guys are blitzing through the tasks that I have laid out for them. So around this well is where the cabins are going to go, the cottages. And then, I'll have the gathering pit sort of in this spot here. And we're also going to want to plan out where our farms are going to go. Farms should definitely be around a water source. Farms ideally could be near the houses. There's a water source over there, but it's surrounded by birch trees, which we're not going to be able to cut down early on. So maybe if there's a water source near the pine. Though I don't see one. But we could always use the well here if we need to. It's not a big deal. What are Ink's other traits? Good call. So, Winter Huntsman, Storm Rider Unease, so doesn't like storms, and Lumberjack Strength, so good at cutting down trees. So maybe Ink will be the Lumberjack. Lumberjack Strength, pretty useful to have early on, as most of your initial buildings are going to be buildings that require wood. Alright, there we go. There's the gathering pit. I'm going to pin that so I can see the terraforming process. And we'll get that built. As you can see, they're already... God, they're fast. There's a lot of games that are, like, have villagers, and the villagers aren't particularly useful. The villagers here, like, make really short work of tasks that would be mundane for the player, which I think is brilliant. Like, both of them are picking up long sticks and delivering them. You know, just, it's, I don't know, it's nice. It feels more collaborative than a lot of the other village builders that I've played, where it feels like you're trying to, like, herd cats or something. You know what I mean? This area will not be replanted because I, like, flattened it out. And I'm planning, and that's very much by design. So here's a case where, like, I deliver the long stick, so he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna drop it. And go find regular sticks. In this case, I'm just going to make regular sticks. Now, there is a lot of critiques about this game, about it feeling like herding cats, but I feel like a lot of the complaints about controlling villagers is more people just don't know how. So now that we have a gathering pit, I am going to manage workers, and we'll put unexpected into the gathering pit. And you can see the gathering pit, their relevant skills. So, master at gathering woods in various uses, and pretty poor at gathering food, but that's fine. The way this works is the food foraging marker has a sphere of influence around it, and you can build other food foraging markers. So, for 1 rope and 3 sticks, I can build other foraging markers to tell them what areas to work in. And, I think I need to supply some food to the villagers. Let's see. Yeah. they're getting a little hungry. So let's forage for them. But I also wanted to show one other thing, which is... Where'd he go? Here you go, bud. Yummy. Work priorities. So if we... Each gathering pit can only have one person, but as you level up the gathering pits to a hut, it can have 2. To a house, you can have 3. And it has its own requirements that needs to be met. So I can't have a gathering hut until I have a workshop pit. But additionally, if we hit Q, we can queue up what the priority is. So I did mention that I really want seeds early on. So I'm going to raise the seeds to much higher priority. Berries intentionally medium, because berries, as we transition through the seasons, will be less useful. So that Unexpected, who is assigned to this, is going to preferentially seek out seeds for crops. All right, I want to build that well next. And maybe assign Ink some flatten tasks. And it's going to look really weird until the until we have the ability to cut down those birch, because I'm going to have to just avoid the birch. We don't have a method to cut them down. Birch requires the start of metal tools, which is not too hard to obtain if you rush for it, but I'm not rushing for it necessarily. Right. So most of the tasks I just laid out just now is like basically busy work for Ink, because Ink was idle. But it's just about end of day, so it's moot. And you can see already, this is what's been collected: berry seeds, garlic seeds, onion seeds, berries, eggs, onions, garlic, and it gets delivered to these individual baskets, and the villagers will automatically withdraw from those baskets to feed themselves. So I don't necessarily need to individually hand out food anymore, because our gatherer is collecting enough for everyone. And it's leisure time. Figured the campfire was running low on fuel. There we go. And I still have one more firewood. So if I want to build that well, I need sticks. Probably the best way to get sticks is to cut down the tall, skinny trees. So I'll just keep doing that. Will they receive materials from the Gathering Hut as well? Yes. And that actually becomes a little bit of an issue later on, where you are more or less encouraged to restrict people from certain places to go. Basically, in really large villages, when there are so many different types of resources everywhere, you don't necessarily want your villagers drawing from all the resources everywhere all at once. So, like, if you have 2 farms in 2 different locations, you don't want one farmer to run over to the other farm to grab seeds. That doesn't really make sense. So, eventually it's important to start whitelisting and blacklisting villagers from specific spots so they don't go way out of their way to do sort of nonsense tasks. So that does become a bit relevant later on. So I just want to get that well built so that I can't ruin it by flatten tasks. And then afterwards, I'll probably add another villager and another industry. And if I had a wood cutting hut, a lot of the resins and woods all around would be automatically collected by that person. So we'd have a lot less, essentially, litter around the base, which is kind of nice. Alright, it only needs 3 more sticks. And it looks like I picked a location surrounded by like onions and garlic, which is great because onions and garlic are the easy ways to heal yourself, especially early game. So our gatherer is going to have no problem gathering up plenty of onion and garlic seeds once we start farming. That's good news. And my food's just about all full, and I haven't even been dipping into the gathering hut. Been trying to leave the gathering hut alone so that that's their food, not my food. So once I have the birch trees cut away, what I can do is like have it stepped down to the well so that it feels a lot more natural than this weird hill. So eventually I'll lay out like a midway terrain around like this so that it feels designed. I'm not too worried about that at the moment though. So the next task here is to build a wood cutting pit. So if the houses are going to be around that well, I want the woodcutting pit far away. Now the problem with that is, the ideal spot for woodcutting pit would be roughly where I'm standing now. But roughly where I'm standing now also happens to be where the initial shelters are. So that's not great, but it won't be a problem for very long. I'm not too worried about the morale of the villagers right now, just because early game, it's pretty easy to keep them, happy. The other thing I might do, because I don't want to do the terrain leveling tasks, because honestly they're boring and I don't like them, is I will make myself another pickaxe and harvest more Jotun blood so that I can summon up another villager. So bring our population up to 3. Because the mining pits don't have harvesting Jotun blood shards as a task. So early game, that's like entirely relegated to you, the player. And I'm making sure that I have replacement tools for the tools that are wearing out. And the same will be true eventually of, not so much the gatherer, because the gatherer that we have hired doesn't really use tools to do most of the gathering, but it will be true of any other craftsman, right? So if you are cutting down trees, you're going to go through axes quickly. If you're mining, you're going to go through picks quickly, etc., etc. If you're a builder, you're going to go through hammers and hoes quickly, for instance. All right, so let's wear out the tools that I have first before using the replacement tools. So we're looking for Jotun blood. So current priority is summon a 3rd villager. And now I need to find the small nodes. Not these bigger ones, those bigger ones. Need a tier 2 harvesting device for. In your tab menu, you also have the entire overlay. So, like, I could pin all of these terraforming tasks so I can keep track of, like, when they're done. And then I also have alerts. So right now, most of my structures are defenseless. Defenseless because I just don't have guards. So there's an entire defenses subtab here that has, like, towers, watchtowers, guard towers, walls, and people like to live in defended areas, and you need to hire guards, and guards will have their own work shifts, and then you can also have, like, a town militia. So eventually, when your population goes up, you also have to make sure that your defenders are well equipped, that they're on duty, that they're guarding where guards need to be guarding. It becomes more complex over time, in sort of a natural progression curve, not like 0 to 90. Unless, of course, you make mistakes like severely growing your population really early on until you get raided to death. I did warn you all, don't do that. Don't have a ridiculously high population without any defenses. You will suffer. Alright, I have got 2 of the 5 Jotun blood I need. And there goes the pickaxe. Don't I have it? Yeah, I had a spare. One nice thing is if you hold R to harvest a resource, it automatically swaps to the tool that's relevant, which is super useful. Not a lot of games that do that, and it's such a tiny little quality of life improvement that helps a lot. I don't want to wander too far from home, but I'm also using this as an opportunity to survey the surrounding area so that I know if there's any enemies around, but it seems pretty docile. I picked a spot that doesn't have a lot of enemy spawners, which is good. Okay, one more blood shard, and we will be able to summon. And the waypoint the player can set is, like, super off. Like, I can change this wherever I want. But, it's a giant pillar in the sky, so it's easy to make your way back home. What are the things that would influence there being hostile mobs? Map generation. So, we found a small cemetery over here, and I also found a wolf's den somewhere. I didn't mark it down. I didn't get close enough to mark it down. Oh, there's another cave over here? Oh, no, this is our cave. Never mind. Derp. So the map is procedurally generated, and there will be, like, shipwreck sites and wolf dens and, spires and the like that spawn enemies. And you don't want to settle your village near them early on, because early on, those enemies will absolutely smoke you. You will die a terrible, terrible death. So, don't start next to those areas. Alright, let's pick the 3rd villager. We have got Clara, who's a snow strider and a lumberjack, and Runa, who's a night shadow and a forager. Which villager to add? We already have someone that has lumberjack strength. It's not to say that it's not useful to have 2. We don't have someone that is naturally a good forager yet, and we definitely don't have anyone that likes to be awake at night. Night can be really useful if you want guards. So speaking of that, which, here is the default schedule. So if we click on the schedule here, you can see the work schedule. So we have sleep, leisure, work, leisure, sleep. And it makes a lot of sense, especially for guards, to have them on different schedules. But there's an advantage to have different schedules on top of that, because eventually we're going to get around to making leisure stuff, like wooden altars. And wooden altars allow them to gather around and tell stories, which keeps them happier. But wooden altars only have 3 spots for people to gather around. So if you want people to gather around efficiently, it makes sense to have everyone have 3 people have leisure schedules offset to one another. And I'll be getting into that a little bit later. But it looks like you guys want Runa. So, summoning Runa. Okay, I'm going to start terraforming this field myself so that I can get the woodcutting pit sooner. Just helping out the builders. As you can see, he's having some issues with flattening that section out. What I could do is just tell him to stop. Alright. So now we have a spot for the woodcutter pit. And the woodcutter pit is an industry that people don't want to live near. I know I'm putting them near the shelters, but these are temporary shelters. So I'm going to put it here. And I'm putting it here so it's next to both birch and pine forests. It's not like an ideal spot, but it could be worse. So the current priority is build a woodcutter pit. And after the woodcutter pit, we'll probably add a stone cut pit and then a workshop pit. Those are the simplest production chains that are really important. So this needs 2 rope. I have plenty of fibers, so that's no problem. Fibers are eventually used to make clothing and armor and the like, so you shouldn't... Early game, it's pretty easy to turn all of your rope, all of your fibers into rope, because you're going to need a lot of rope. But later on in the game, it's not just rope you need, it's also like flax linen and the like. So turning all of your, constantly turning all of your fibers into rope is not a good idea long term. But also growing flax in a farm is really important, I would say. Alright, so we have a pack of, so the current priority right now is going to be kill the, kill the pests that are coming in. So we're being attacked by, like, overgrown bunnies that like to eat crops and food and the like. And they're scared away by villagers, and they're scared away by, fire. And, they also drop an item, a horn, which allows you to summon your town guard. So here is Runa, and your name is going to be Sapo. And you ended up with Rocker, so you're good at mining. Feeble Logger. And you are Proficient Gatherer. So I'm going to switch her into the gathering role. So she's going to become a... Oh, actually, you know, she's relatively tied with Unexpected now, because Unexpected has leveled up his gathering skill. So it might not be super necessary. But I will also assign her a home. And what I wanted to do is to craft myself like a basic bow. Because you can see the bunnies on the horizon over there, mucking about. Because I want to kill them for the horns. So the horns they drop allow you to summon your town guard, which is a really important thing to have when you're trying to defend from attackers. To be able to rally villagers to your defense. And the bunnies run away, so it's easier to just shoot them and wound them. And the horn isn't a guaranteed drop, so you have to kill a few of them to be able to get a horn. So the one I wounded is the target I want. There is a left control crouch. I think that's the one I wounded. Yeah, I saw an arrow sticking out of it. They're leaving the village, but that doesn't stop me any. Once you wound them mortally, they slow down, so you can catch them more easily. I just got juked. Where'd it go? Another advice that I have is if you're trying to hunt these things, having rested recently, so you have the energy regen buff, is very helpful. So it looks like we have the woodcutting pit. So I'm going to assign one of the builders to the woodcutter. So, Ink. Here, let's take a look. Ink is a lumberjack strength, so let's give it to him. Thank you for tuning in to ASKA, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below, but please keep in mind I've asked for no backseating and no spoilers, so if you can avoid those in the comments, that would be great. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Vikings.